I pushed the rusty gate open, and the sound echoed down the empty mountain road. My boots crunched over the gravel as I climbed the steps of the house I'd bought 6 months ago at an auction. The boards were still warped, the porch railing crooked, but it was my place. I had the keys in my pocket and a backpack full of tools for the first round of renovations. The front door was supposed to be locked, but it swung open like it had been waiting for me. I froze. A faint smell of coffee drifted out. Inside, the dusty floor I remembered was swept clean. A brand-new floral rug sat in the hallway. From the kitchen came a sharp voice. "You're tracking dirt on my floor." I stepped forward and saw her, middle-aged, blonde hair pinned up tight, wearing a cardigan like she'd been living here for years. She held a coffee mug like a weapon. "Who are you?" She glared at me. "Who am I? Who are you? You can't just walk into someone's home." I pulled the deed from my jacket pocket and laid it on the table between us. "This is my house. I bought it at auction 6 months ago." Her eyes darted to the paper, but she didn't even blink. "That deed doesn't mean anything. This property is under the Willow Ridge HOA. I'm the president. I've been staying here to make sure no squatters ruin it." I couldn't believe it. "You've been living in my house to protect it from squatters?" She sipped her coffee like she owned the mountain. "It's my duty, and you can't just renovate anything without HOA approval. We have rules." I looked around at the new curtains, the polished table, the framed photo of her little dog on the mantel. She'd moved in like it was hers. I said slowly, "This house isn't even in your HOA zone. I checked the map before I bought it." She gave a tight smile. "The board voted last month to expand the boundary. This whole ridge belongs to Willow Ridge now, so technically you're trespassing." The words hit like a slap. I realized she'd locked me out of my own home for months, and now she was calling me a trespasser. I reached for my phone to call the county office, but she stepped between me and the door. "If you try to bring in any workers or touch a single wall, I'll have the HOA security come up here. They'll throw you off the property." There was no such thing as HOA security on this mountain, just county deputies. But the way she said it, with that sharp edge in her voice, made it clear she wasn't bluffing about causing trouble. I pocketed my phone and said quietly, "You're going to regret saying that." She didn't move. "We'll see." Outside, the wind howled through the pines, and I knew this wasn't just going to be a renovation project anymore. I drove straight down the winding road to the county office before the sun dipped behind the ridge. The clerk at the land records desk pulled up my file on her screen and frowned. "Your deed is clean," she said. "No HOA ties, no liens. This property's always been private land. Whoever's in that house has no legal claim." That should have eased me, but it didn't. I'd seen the way Karen stood there, like she had backup. I asked for a certified copy of the deed and the county zoning map, then headed to the sheriff's department. The deputy behind the counter raised an eyebrow when I told him someone had moved into my house. "Sounds like a civil matter," he said. "File an unlawful detainer notice and take it to court." I shook my head. "She's not just squatting. She's threatening to bring HOA security to throw me off my own land." At that, another deputy across the room looked up. "HOA security?" he muttered. "Ain't no HOA jurisdiction up there. We'd get calls if they tried that." The first deputy handed me a form. "You've got proof of ownership. Bring it back if she tries anything criminal. For now, you'll have to handle eviction legally." It felt like a brick wall. Nobody wanted to step in. I left with the paperwork, but no immediate help. Back at the mountain house that evening, I noticed something new. A black SUV parked by the porch. Its tinted windows reflected the sunset, and two men in matching dark jackets leaned against the car, talking quietly. Karen stood on the porch with her arms crossed. When she saw me, her smile was slow and cold. "You again? I told you, you're not welcome here until the board approves your presence." I ignored her and stepped closer. "Who are they?" I nodded toward the SUV. "HOA security," she answered, as if that settled it. The
The taller man stepped forward, resting his hand on his belt, not a gun, but a radio clipped there. "Ma'am said you're trespassing," he said flatly. "We're here to make sure you leave." I felt my jaw tighten. "This is my land. I have the deed in my truck." Karen's voice rose, sharp enough to cut the evening air. "No paperwork changes the fact you're breaking HOA rules. Pack your things and go before we have to call the real cops." Her words made the men smirk. It was clear they weren't law enforcement, just muscle she'd hired to look official. I stepped back, trying to keep my temper in check. "Fine, I'll call the cops. I'll be waiting for them right here with my deed." Her expression faltered for just a second before she turned to the men. "You heard him. Stay on watch. He's not allowed inside." I got in my truck, pretending to drive off, but instead I parked down the hill, hidden behind the trees. My dash cam was still rolling, angled toward the porch. That's when I saw one of the so-called security guys slip a crowbar from the SUV and disappear around the back of the house. A moment later, there was a faint clatter, metal on wood. I knew then Karen's game wasn't just about claiming the house. She was up to something else entirely. And I had the first piece of proof to stop her.
I crept back up the slope after dark, moving slow so the gravel wouldn't crunch under my boots. The porch light cast a yellow glow on Karen's curtains, but I could hear voices drifting from inside, low, urgent, like they didn't want anyone to overhear. The dashcam footage was already backed up to the cloud, but I wanted to know what they were doing with the crowbar. I slipped around the side of the house where the mountain dropped off steeply. A few boards on the lower wall looked newer, freshly nailed, unpainted. Behind them, I heard scraping, then a dull thud. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Through a crack in the boards, I saw the shorter guard crouched by the foundation, prying up the old floorboards inside the crawl space. He had a flashlight in his mouth and was hauling something out, a battered metal box, heavy enough that he grunted when he lifted it. Karen's voice floated down, "Hurry up before he comes back. We can't let him find it." My pulse hammered. Whatever was in that box, they were desperate to keep it hidden. The guard lugged the box into the SUV's trunk. I stayed still until they shut the trunk and went back inside. I went straight to the sheriff's station the next morning, armed with the dashcam footage and the new recording. The same deputy from yesterday looked at the videos, then whistled. "That's breaking and entering," he said. "And that SUV plate belongs to a private security outfit from the city, not licensed to operate here." He printed out a report and called the on-duty sheriff in. The sheriff, a big man with a calm face, leaned over the counter to look at my phone. "You said you're the owner?" he asked. I slid the certified deed across to him. "Bought it at auction, paid cash. I just want my house back." The sheriff nodded slowly. "You'll get it, but something tells me this ain't just a trespassing case. That box they took, we'll need a warrant to search that SUV." When we drove back up the ridge together in his cruiser, Karen was standing on the porch again, arms folded tight, but this time she didn't look smug. The SUV was gone. The sheriff stepped out first. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about last night." Karen's smile was brittle as ice. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was here all evening." I started to answer, but the sheriff held up a hand for me to stay quiet. "Then you won't mind if we take a look around," he said. For the first time, I saw her mask slip. Her eyes darted toward the side of the house, the same spot where I'd seen them pulling up boards. That was all the proof I needed that there was more buried under this mountain house than either of us expected.
Karen's smile cracked wider, but her voice stayed sickly sweet. "You can't come in without a warrant." The sheriff didn't blink. "We're not searching the house yet. We're asking you to step aside while we check for signs of forced entry." She hesitated, then folded her arms tighter. "There's nothing to find." I stepped forward. "Then you won't mind me unlocking my own door." I slid the key into the lock and opened it. Karen didn't move, but the sheriff gave me a small nod. Inside, the place felt different, like the house itself was holding its breath. The sheriff's flashlight beam skimmed over the floorboards where the rug used to be. A fresh nail glinted in the wood near the wall. He crouched and tapped it with his knuckle. "Something's been opened recently," he said. Karen snapped, "That's just old wood, don't touch it." The sheriff peeled back the rug anyway. Beneath it was a square outline of a trap door, edges scuffed where the crowbar had pried it open. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "why is there a concealed compartment in this floor?" She started to speak, then shut her mouth, staring at the door like it could swallow her whole. I knelt beside the sheriff and helped lift it. The hinges squealed as the hatch came up, revealing a dark crawl space. Inside lay a scatter of old coins, some yellowed envelopes, and a folded canvas sack that looked decades old. The sheriff opened the sack and froze. Inside was a stack of leather-bound ledgers, each stamped with a bank's seal. The top page showed rows of numbers, transactions, property deeds, and what looked like signatures from people who'd long since passed away. Karen's voice shook now. "Those aren't mine. They were here when I moved in." The sheriff stood, holding the ledger. "Looks like someone's been hiding more than furniture here. These are historic property records, and a few of these names match land disputes from years back. This is evidence." Karen's face went pale. She backed towards the porch, but another deputy had arrived and blocked her path. I turned to her. "You tried to steal my house to cover up what was under it. You should have stayed away." She didn't answer. The sheriff radioed for a unit to track down the black USV, then looked at me. "We'll secure the property tonight. You're free to stay, but I'd recommend locking up. We'll be taking her in for trespassing and likely more once we sort out what these books mean." Karen was escorted down the porch steps in cuffs, still protesting that the HOA would sue everyone involved. As the sun set over the ridge, the mountain felt quiet again. I stood on the porch of my own house at last, watching the patrol car's taillights fade down the road. I'd come here planning to renovate an old cabin. Instead, I'd uncovered a hidden ledger that could expose years of land fraud, and the woman who thought she could bully me off my own property was finally gone. I locked the door, knowing the fight for my land was over, but the fight for the secrets buried beneath it had only just begun.